Blaine Wright. We'll get to him in a second. Live in a few minutes, Frank Vespe, theracingbiz.com. Great coverage of Mid-Atlantic racing down in that Maryland region. But he'll be live from the Baltimore area to give us a little update and review yesterday's action as well. And towards the end of the program, we taped an interview yesterday with Jeremy Plonk. Again, he had a great opinion on the Derby. We'll see what his thoughts are on the Preakness. But we'll start out. Another twist of fate. Trainer Blaine Wright. He's headed to his first Triple Crown race. We caught up with him yesterday. Up next, Blaine Wright. By Blaine Wright, the trainer of Another Twist of Fate, one of the horses that will be running Saturday afternoon in the Preakness. Blaine, good morning.
How you guys doing?
Very good. You and I were talking off the air, and I got your number because I knew you're a good friend of, and you're with, in fact, our friend Tony Kalo. How long have you known Tony?
Oh, man, I met Tony Kalo years ago when he was announcing for Golden Gate or Bay Meadows at the time, and then we all kind of, we had a mutual friend named Mark Ryanford who had some horses with Tony in partnerships, and we ended up all together one winter in Arizona and lived together and whatnot and just had a fabulous time. And Tony and I became pretty good friends since then. That was probably like, I'd say 2006. 2005, something around there.
We always love having Tony on the show. We were up at Finger Lakes a couple weeks ago and had a live sit-in. Looking forward to maybe getting him over when we're on the backstretch at Saratoga if he comes in town for a visit. So say hello for us. Substitute announcer out at Finger Lakes on Saturday. He will be rooting you on down in Baltimore, Preakness. And let's talk a little bit about Another Twist of Fate. But first, just a broader question. Your first starter in the Triple Crown race, how exciting is that?
Oh, man, it's been awesome. I'll tell you what, the people here, their customer service and what they've rolled out for the horses in second to none. Everybody from top to bottom has just been fabulous, and they put on a show. We're talking breakfast every day for the grooms, dinner for every day for the grooms. It's all made for them, and same thing for us, you know. So it's fabulous to be here, and we just hope our horse shows up and puts out his best effort, and hopefully he belongs.
That's great. I didn't realize they did that. And I'm told everybody, all the Preakness entrants are in the same barn. So is it fun just kind of mingling around and talking to all the folks down there?
Oh, for sure. I mean, everybody's kind of going about their own business, you know, and things like that. But everyone says hello and try to help each other out as much as we can. And at the same time, you know, come tomorrow, we're going to probably be trying to get each other at the throat.
Let's talk a little Another Twist of Fate, and let's go back a couple of races, and we'll go over the last two races. I want to go back to the Sunland Park Derby. We're going to watch the stretch run here. You're going to run second to the Pletcher horse, Cutting Humor. Cutting Humor is going to be the number 5 horse. Another Twist of Fate, the number 2. You just missed by a neck, a frustrating neck, and a lot of people came out of this putting Another Twist of Fate on their Kentucky Derby list. But talk about the Sunland Park Derby. What was your takeaway from this race?
Well, you know, it was tough to take that loss, obviously, but at the same time, we learned a lot about our horse. We learned that he could be hooked and still run on. We learned that we could take him off the pace and go around horses and he'll run at them. And we also learned that dirt was never a factor, which people were trying to make a pretty big deal about. But I never had any doubt in my mind that dirt would be a factor to the horse. The other things you always question that when you have a front runner, and we thought it was time that if we put him in a race like that and he needed to take off the pace, you know, we needed to do that for sure.
And so, again, you look at the races at Golden Gate, and that's why folks were wondering about dirt. Golden Gate, obviously, a synthetic surface. And there he was mostly on the front end. Sunland Park Derby, he came from a little off the pace. Was that a game plan then to maybe put him off the pace and try that and get a little dirt in his face?
Not really so much a game plan as it was to... We knew that we wanted to, the way the post position set, we knew that Baffert would spin. So we wanted to push back off him. We also know the local horse there wore a citation bit and that he was going to be, usually when we watched his replays, when he hit the backside, that horse was always, you know, kind of throwing his head just a little bit in the air, which means maybe wanted to run off just a little bit. So at that point, I told Juan, if that horse floats up to you, you know, ease back off the pace and try to get outside. And Juan did exactly that thing, but at the same time, John Velasquez stuck him in the pocket there, and that's kind of, I think the race was won and lost at the 5 furlong pole, basically, when Velasquez kind of stuck us in the pocket. But that's kind of how it all worked out there.
And again, a just miss effort in the Sunland Park Derby. Let's go on to the Lexington, shopping for some Kentucky Derby points in the Lexington. Again, it had to be a little disappointing to run second, but it was a good second. We'll watch the stretch run. Owendale, the number 8, wins. You're the number 4. And again, you run second in here. Talk about your takeaway from the Lexington at Keeneland.
The Lexington at Keeneland wasn't the most ideal race in my mind. I don't think our horse likes to be down in the pocket that right there, covered up like that. It just worked out that way. Post position had a lot to do with it, and he broke just a touch tardy, and he got stuck down in there, and he didn't really look comfortable to me the whole way. At the same time, I thought that the day before they had some torrential downpours there, and I thought the track was a little thick and heavy, and that might not have been his best going, but no way, shape, or form am I trying to take anything away from Owendale that day. He had a heck of a trip, and he took the overland route and run by everybody, and we couldn't go with him late. So you just kind of take that with a grain of salt. Our horse pulled up good, and we were in the Derby for about another few days until things kind of shook loose, and when we thought, okay, at this point, get home and regroup.
And talk about that decision, because I'm sure that has to be tough. You would have been sitting on the Derby bubble. And we talked with Ken McPeak about Signalman, and one of the reasons he didn't like the bubble for Signalman was even if you get in, you're stuck with an outside post position because you don't get the choice coming off the bubble potentially if you made the AE situation. But talk a little bit about your decision, because it seems like you made it fairly quickly that we're not going to sit and wait to see how things shake out bubble-wise. We're just going to go back to Northern California and regroup and aim for the Preakness. What was that decision-making process like?
Well, you look at the Derby, and it costs $50,000 to race just to enter and start. So you're 50 G's in the hole. And then the fact that we come out of a win and you're in race, where we didn't have to pay the fees to enter and start into the Preakness. You look at the 2-week run back. If he runs bad in the Derby, we're basically just wasting $30,000 because we probably wouldn't want to run in the Preakness. So it's kind of like, all right, if we get in, we're in the 20 hole. We've got speed. That usually never works itself out. So there was like 3 strikes against waiting at Churchill and waiting to see if you get in versus saying, all right, here's what we do. We come home. We're still running a grade 1. It's $1.5 million. We've got 5 weeks to prepare this horse. Boom. That was our decision right there. Let's get home and take our best shot.
And so fill us in. How has he been working out? I'm seeing a bullet 6 furlong work out at Golden Gate just a week ago last Friday. How's he been working since that Lexington, and how's he coming into Saturday afternoon?
Well, really good. The horse was pretty well traveled. We got him home. He never got out of the feed tub. As a matter of fact, from the time he left for Sunland to the time he come back from Churchill, he had lost 3 pounds in the whole thing. So he held his weight very good. He didn't get ribby. His blood, we took blood on him. His blood work was in good order. We evaluate all that stuff when you're shipping around like that. So in that sense, the horse was in terrific shape. We didn't train him very hard, for the first week. We just kind of let him rebound and let us tell him when to pick. We let him tell us when to pick the training up with. When he started getting wild again, we started picking the training up again. So since that workout last week, everything's just been, very ho-hum. We don't do nothing. A couple maintenance gallops, a little schooling in the paddock, a little schooling in the gate. And he's been in the feed tub. I just left his stall. He's right up to the front of the stall. And as far as I can tell, the horse looks like he's in pretty good shape.
And when did he arrive at Pimlico? And I saw some video, I think yesterday, he was on the track. So your impressions of how he's taking to the Pimlico surface?
Yeah, we came Tuesday. He left the barn at Golden Gate about 5 a.m. in the morning. Got on the plane probably about 6:30. And I think they took off at 8, and they landed on the East Coast time about 4:30. So all in all, he was back in his stall about 8:30 that night. So we were probably about 14 hours stall to all from East Coast to West Coast because he flew into Newark and then Van down.
And again, how's he taking to the surface so far, going out there and just galloping around in the morning?
Yeah, I don't think the surface will be an issue for this horse. He's in good shape.
And also, I saw an interview with you a little bit earlier this week, and I'm not sure whether it was prior. I watched it earlier this week. It may have been done earlier than that. But you were talking about distance for this horse, and he's had a couple of 1.125 races in the El Camino Real and the Sunland Derby. This is a 1.316, so it's another half a furlong. But from what I heard in that interview, you kind of feel like maybe the more distance, the better. 1.25 miles would be right in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, this horse, he's a stayer. He's a big 17-hand, big, long stride. I mean, if you've watched any video on him, he's got a stride from here to the other side of the room. So, his stamina level is very, very good. I'd be very surprised if he has distance limitations.
And one of the other things I picked up from reading about the horse and interviews with you, I'm assuming going forward there are plenty of options because it sounded like you guys think there's some turf in the pedigree, and so that may be an option going down the road as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, but as a 3-year-old, all the big races are on the dirt. So right now that he's handling it, we're going to focus in on that probably through the end of the year, should the horse, unless he tails off. At this point, he's had turf all up and down his female side. We all know what scat gaddies are capable of on the turf. So, at some point, we will try him on the turf, just not right now.
I hear you. And before we let you go, also just want to help to introduce our audience to you. You know, we're over here in the Saratoga area, but mainly you're Northern California or the Great Northwest. So just give us a bit of your background, a little of your bio information. I saw a piece the other day where you're carrying around a blanket from, I guess, your father from Long Acres, and you're using that on some of your horses, a stakes-winning blanket from Long Acres. So I'm assuming you got into the game through family connections.
Oh, for sure. My dad was a jockey-turned horse trainer. He come out of Wyoming, started riding match races with quarter horses, predominantly in quarter horse racing. I'm named after Blaine Swanevelt, so that can tell you how close those two were back in the day. They all used to shop around at LeBois Park and on that little small circuit. Great Gilchrist, knew him real well. So good buddies with all those guys growing up. And my mother's side of the family is a racetrack as well. My grandpa and my uncle were more into the chariot races there in Plain City, Utah, and Ogden and that. And basically, my dad rode for my grandpa. That's kind of how he got introduced to my mother, and ended up going to Portland, and my dad was, a Hall of Famer in Portland in the quarter horse days, and eventually he's moved over to thoroughbred racing, and he broke his back in '74. He tried to make a comeback. It didn't really work out, so he turned to training and built a heck of a legacy and probably some of the best days Long Acres had. He was maybe fourth, fifth best in the trainer standings there, but he always had 40 head, and at the same time, I got a blanket that he won back in '86, and we started taking it on the road with us, and we've won some big stake races with us, so it's kind of our good luck charm, so we just keep bringing it with us.
Nice, keeping the legacy alive. And it sounds like you have some family and friends that are going to be in for the weekend, too, so that just has to be great to show up for the Preakness.
Yeah, we're all just soaking this in. This is new to us, our first Triple Crown race for everybody, and so certainly wanted to involve my mom and my dad and my sisters. My mom's the unsung hero. Dad and always said that if we let her name get out there, him and I'd lose our job because she's the real horseman of the family.
That's great. I'm certainly rooting for you on Saturday afternoon with another twist of fate. But before we let you go, have to get some memories. Another twist of fate certainly isn't your first big horse. I want to go back and show a horse we talked with Tony a lot about when we had him on the show, Alert Bay. And I'm going to pull up the Mathis Brothers Mile from 2014. Alert Bay is the number 4 horse, finishing behind him Home Run Kitten. That was a graded stakes winner. Heart to Heart was a grade 1 winner. Long on Value was a grade 1 winner. This was a nice addition of this Mathis Mile. And Alert Bay wins, again, as the number 4 horse in here. Wound up to be a millionaire. Just talk about the career and what fun it was having a horse like Alert Bay in your barn.
Oh, man. Well, hopefully it's not over with yet. We actually had him back in the barn about a month ago.
Oh, okay.
And did some vet checking on him, and he's rehabbing very good. So we sent him back out for about 60 more days to be in the aqua tread. He aggravated his old injury, but he'll probably be back as an 8-year-old. You know, what that horse has done for me, putting us on a national scale, and he's not the best looking, not the biggest horse, the whole 9 yards, and all he ever did was just show up and give him a hard time, and nobody ever, you know, outside of being at Golden Gate, they really never give him his due anywhere he went, but time and time again, he showed up, and he put up, you know, and I give Peter Redekop all the credit in the world for managing that horse. He never wanted to subject him to grade 1 horses. He was like, hey, we're going to make money doing it the way we're doing it. Grade 3s, grade 2s, California bred races, the whole 9 yards. That's the way he did it, and he deserves the credit for that horse making $1.3 million.
Yeah, $1.3 million, 15 wins and 36 starts, and we'll look for him to come back. That'll be fun. Blaine, we really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a busy weekend, and have a lot of fun with you, the family, and the friends like Tony. And again, wish you a lot of luck with another twist of fate in the Preakness.
Sure appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, again, Blaine Wright, Preakness, another twist of fate. Another twist of fate. Certainly wish them a lot of luck this afternoon in the Preakness. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll go down to Pimlico. Usually when we talk to Frank, we're talking Laurel, but today, Pimlico. Frank Vespe live from Baltimore. He'll give us a little update on the weather and more. We'll recap some of the stakes action from yesterday with Frank. All of that right after this. Stay tuned.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.
Witnessed a felony.
Where's the best place to find your favorite teams, your favorite food, daily drink specials, and wagering on live horse racing? Legends Field Sports Bar, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. Get your game on day or night with 75 flat-screen TVs, tournament-style pool tables, a private banquet room, and live horse racing. So if someone asks you, where's the best sports bar in the capital region? Tell them Legends Field Sports Bar, inside the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
The Game On Dude is just battling them all off. Game On Dude has the lead. Here's Drosselmeyer out of the clouds. Drosselmeyer from nowhere. And Drosselmeyer and Mike Smith have beaten Chantel Sutherland on Game On Dude.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. Still reaching out to Frank Vespe. Again, he is live down at Pimlico, so maybe bouncing around a little bit. And we'll plug him in when we make contact. Talked a little bit about this earlier on the handicappers report, but as of 7:30 last night, the odds, and again, this also was tied up with the double pool. I didn't see the handle for the win pool, but it was tied in with the double, and the double handle was 800,000, so decent money there. But we'll see how these odds hold up coming into today. The favorite as of 7:30 last night in early Preakness betting was Improbable at 5-2. Second choice, surprisingly, was Bourbon War. Bourbon War on a 12-1 morning line, 9-2. And it was funny, the horse was getting a little bit of buzz this week, so I wondered where that one would wind up. Other single-digit odds, War of Will at 7-1, and Always Mining at 5-1. Always Mining, I'm not surprised, was taking some action. Always Mining was 8-1 on the morning line, now 5-1 on the odds. And again, not shocked that that one wound up with a little juice there, as it were, because coming off of that 6-race win streak, that's the one I have on top. So as I say, I'm not shocked there. Another Twist of Fate at 10-1 is the lowest of the double-digit odds. And again, not really shocked there either. Again, we had the interview a few moments ago with his trainer, Baline, Wright. And coming out of that second-place finish in the Sunland Derby, certainly it wasn't a shock to folks that kind of jumped on board him then, thinking, hey, maybe my potential Derby horse. Wouldn't be a shock to those folks that this horse has taken some action here in the Preakness. He got in a win in urine. The El Camino Real Derby was a win in urine race. So as Blaine said, they came out of the second in the Lexington. They could have been on the Derby bubble, but decided, hey, let's go back to Northern California, regroup, and just aim straight for the Preakness. All right. While we wait for Frank, why don't we take a look at the stretch run yesterday of the Black Eyed Susan, because as we talked about that yesterday, handicappers report, and as I was in with OTB Live in the afternoon, I said point of honor for George Weaver, and we talked to him. We talked to George maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago and mentioned point of honor, and he said this would probably be the game plan to aim for the Black Eyed Susan. This is a horse that had shown some flashes of talent early and then wound up running 4th in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. Only 3 starts, but again, had shown some promise, and I said on the handicappers report yesterday, she had the chance to kind of step up and move into a prominent position in the 3-year-old filly division with a win yesterday. She's going to be the number 8 horse, but Eulalie, the number 3 horse for Brad Cox. And point of honor was the second choice at 5-2, Eulalie at 7-1. Eulalie's there on the rail and just does not give up. It looks like point of honor is going to blow by and win pretty easily, but Eulalie gives her all she can ask for to the wire here. Running third was the number 4, Cookie Dough. But a nice performance, and again, a point of honor you would have to think does move herself into a pretty prominent position in the 3-year-old filly ranks. But Eulalie, I think, is also a live player. She was fairly lightly raced, too. She had only had 5 starts. Number-wise, it looked like she was going to have to step things up a little bit. And I didn't see the numbers for the races yesterday. I haven't seen those yet. But you would have to think she probably, given what we've seen number-wise from point of honor already, I think Eulalie probably did step it up. So, again, they're probably both interesting players as we move forward now in this 3-year-old filly division. Certainly point of honor is for George Weaver. So, nice addition yesterday of the Black Eyed Susan. And I saw Frank's. We don't have Frank, right? I saw his graphic popped up there. We're still reaching out to Frank Vespe. So again, when we jump in and get him, we will plug him in. But in the meantime, we'll go back and take a look at another one of the stakes from yesterday. One of the more impressive performances yesterday was Covfefe in the Miss Preakness. Covfefe, a track record, and again, a phenomenal performance from the Brad Cox trainee. Covfefe is going to be the number 2 horse here and win pretty easily. Please Flatter Me second, Tomlin third. But again, Covfefe running a big... Oh, I do hear in my ear. Frank, are you there?
I'm here, Seth. How are you this morning?
Very good. Happy to have you join us. And as you're joining us, I was just going over the Miss Preakness, so I'll let you make some comments about that, because I think on a day of some nice performances, this was probably the most impressive performance, Covfefe, with a track record in the Miss Preakness.
Yeah, that's probably going to end up being the performance of the weekend. She was spectacular. In fact, she was, the old track record here was 109 for 6 furlongs. She goes 107.70.
I didn't know what the old record was, so she broke it by over a second?
It was so preposterously fast that you immediately said, well, obviously the timing is screwed up. So I ran upstairs to the timer, and I said, is that real? And he showed me, he obviously that's the teletimer time, 107.70. He hand timed the race at the same time, and he got 107.65. So, so validating the 107.70. I mean, that's just an absolutely freakish performance by a horse. So she was spectacular. That was just. I didn't see that coming. I don't know if you did, but I sure didn't.
I had used her underneath. I thought Fighting Mad was going to be interesting from Baffert, and that one winds up, and I'm just looking here, Fighting Mad winds up 7th in the field of 9. But I had Covfefe right underneath, and I had talked to Brad Cox yesterday, and he said, they had decided after the Frisette they would come back and concentrate more on shorter distances. Yeah, I guess so. And I said to him yesterday, so we might see her in the test up at Saratoga, and he kind of hedged a little bit. As a trainer, it was more like, well, we're concentrating on what's coming up this afternoon. But now I think we can say, yeah, we'll see her in the test.
I would think that's right. I spoke with Brad this morning, and I didn't ask him what was coming next, because I think he's still kind of processing what she just did. I mean, I was there with Dave Rodman. We were over at his barn, and he said to us, now, is it right horses don't usually go under 23 for the first quarter mile? And the answer is they almost never go under 23 here, because the timing beam is right at the gate. So as soon as the gate opens, the clock starts, which isn't usually the case. And so I think Covfefe went 22-1, which is just blazing, and she never stopped. So I think he's still kind of wrestling with what just happened here and how good is this filly.
That's incredible. Frank, didn't get a chance to kind of formally introduce you, but we are talking to Frank Vespe, the racingbiz.com. Always tout that as a great place to go and follow Mid-Atlantic racing, and certainly racing in the Maryland region, and this is one of the highlights of the Maryland schedule. Pimlico, their meet, and the Preakness, Black-Eyed Susan Day. I also want to tout, Frank, that when I visited the website this morning, folks can jump on theracingbiz.com. You have a free handicapping contest today focusing on Pimlico that starts in race 6.
Yeah, and that's something people always enjoy, and it's just fun to do. You have a free contest, maybe you get bragging rights, maybe you do pretty well, and people always enjoy them. And we want to focus on all the stakes at Pimlico today, because it really is a nice card they put together. The racing office has done a great job. A couple of scratches are a little disappointing, but the major races are largely holding together, so it should be a really exciting day here.
And again, the racingbiz.com, I've jumped in and played a few of the contests, a lot of fun. And as you say, you get some bragging rights and a good way to kind of follow the action during the day. Give us a little update on yesterday. I read attendance was a record, handle was a record. What was it like, Black-Eyed Susan Day, on track at Pimlico?
Well, I mean, it wasn't raining, and that it seems like every day. It seems like it's been years since it wasn't raining, and so we really caught a break. The weather was just perfect. It was an absolutely gorgeous day, which, as you know, it makes a huge difference in how you experience a day of racing. Whether you can walk around and have a smile on your face and a drink in your hand, or whether you're just huddled under umbrellas. So that was nice. The attendance, they announced a record. I have no way of verifying that, but the handle was a huge record. I mean, it was, I think it was 3 million more than the previous record for this day, which is a tremendous thing, obviously, for the track and the horsemen, and so that was great. And it was a good day, I mean, Covfefe really has to be the star, but, the Pimlico Special, I mean, Tenfold sure likes him some Pimlico. He has run 2 tremendous races here at Pimlico. That was an exciting race, and then Point of Honor taking the taking the Black Eyed Susan was an exciting race, but I thought the Point of Honor, rather the Pimlico Special, was really a good race. I mean, the way Ricardo Santana kind of winds his way through, and then horses closing at the end, and just a lot of different and kind of exciting things going on in that race. So that was fun and really a good day. I mean, I think everybody was pretty happy. Obviously, there was the one filly that didn't make it out of the Miss Preakness. That was obviously put a little bit of a damper on things, but overall it was a good day.
Yeah, and let's go back, and we showed the stretch run to that Black Eyed Susan a little bit earlier. Let's take another look at that. It is Point of Honor. And I said yesterday, handicapping, she had a chance to step up and become a player in that 3-year-old filly division. I think she did that with the win yesterday. But Eulalie, the Brad Cox runner, gave her all she could ask for in the stretch.
Sure did, yeah. Slips through inside. Castellano on Point of Honor basically said, I just want to stay outside. I don't want to get bumped around. I don't want a lot of dirt in my face. I just want to stay outside and get a clean trip, which he does, and Eulalie kind of slips up inside and almost takes the money there. But I'll tell you what, yesterday, let's say this, if trends continue today, give a long look to everything Brad Cox sends out, give a long look to everything Castellano is on, because those guys were really firing yesterday.
And we're watching the stretch run here with, again, Point of Honor getting it done, and then maybe we'll fire up again the Pimlico Special, which you referred to, because it was also a nice day, given a win in the Pimlico Special for Asmussen and Santana. And again, yesterday on the handicapping show, I said, you know what? Tenfold was an interesting 3-year-old last year. I think with a good performance on Friday, gets a chance to be a player in the handicap division this year. He'll be the number 8 horse coming down the stretch, and I think he did step up and kind of validate that last race at Oaklawn may have been due to the off-going, and I think he's better than that. But Tenfold looked pretty good in the Pimlico Special.
I thought it really did, and if you go back and watch the race, and he's kind of idled behind horses and kind of looking for a spot. Santana is, we don't see him a lot here in Maryland, but he's really good, and he finds a seam and gets through. I was talking with Dave Rodman afterwards, and he was saying that it's kind of the hardest race to call because you've got a cord maker and the other horse that are closing on the outside, and they kind of catch your eye. And Tenfold looks like he's just kind of toiling in there, and then all of a sudden he slips through and strikes the front, and you're kind of looking back and forth between them. But I think I agree with you. I think that this is a horse that can be a player in this division, and Asmussen has said that he feels like this is a horse that's still like figuring it out, still kind of growing and trying to get this whole racing thing under control. And he's come to Pimlico twice. He's run great twice. He ran great in the Preakness last year. He ran great yesterday. I'm sure he wishes there were more races at Pimlico for him, but I think he's certainly he's a horse I'm going to be very curious to see how he goes forward from here.
Yeah, like I said, I think he's going to be a player. I don't know whether he's going to be a superstar, but I think he'll be a player in the handicap division, certainly. Also on the card yesterday, Shalon, a nice little comeback effort in the Hilltop. The 2 Chads looked pretty good, Dog Tag and Nova Soul. The last stake of the day was won by Brad Cox with My Lady Curlin, completing a really nice day for him. And locally, the Jim McKay Turf Sprint, Completed Pass, a locally based horse, got the win in the McKay Turf Sprint. Yeah,
I mean, that's always fun to see. I mean, obviously, Maryland is different from New York or Kentucky because when we have big races, it's usually out-of-towners who get the money. So it's always exciting on these big days to see the local guys get a little action, get a sniff, win a race like that. Obviously, also the Pimlico Special Cord Maker coming third for Rodney Jenkins and Victor Carrasco, so that was nice. So yeah, I mean, it's a nice day. It's always going to be a nice day, but it's nice when the local guys can make a little noise and walk out with some money to rub together, too.
Yeah, that is always fun, certainly. Frank, give us a little update today. First of all, what's the weather like so far today down in that area, and what's the projection for later today and this afternoon? And is the crowd starting to filter in already?
You certainly yes to the last question. The crowd's starting to filter in. I mean, it's after 9:30 now. First post is 10:30 here, so it's a long day in front of us. But we've already had the national anthem, so crowd's starting fill in, and so it should be good. Right now, I was out of the house this morning at 6 or so, and it was raining just a little then, but that seems to have stopped. Right now, it's a little bit hazy and humid and hot, but I think it's going to be. I think we're supposed to be clear today. I think so. I think we'll probably be fast and firm all day, is what it sounds like. The news this morning was trying to go back. When was the last time we had a dry Preakness? And so that seems like a good sign if they're looking in the history books for the last time this happened. So I think we're going to be okay weather-wise. I think the track, like I said, should be fast and firm. So should be a good day here.
I'm sure Larry Colmus, Dave Rodman, and the NBC director are all breathing a sigh of relief after last year and the stretch run in the fog. Yeah, that was crazy. Frank, before we let you go, just give us some thoughts. Yeah, your thoughts on the Preakness. I'm going to take a shot with Always Mining. I'm going to look for a local horse to get it done. I think with the 6-race win streak, he just comes in blazing good form. Owendale is interesting to me, and I'm going to use that one underneath with Improbable and Win in the mix as well. What are your thoughts on the Preakness?
Yeah, I mean, I would, as a local guy, I'd love to see Maryland Brett get it done here. I'd love to see Always Mining do it, and it's such a cool story. I mean, the people who own him, the Bentleys, are, they're nice people. They're kind of experiencing this in sort of an everyman way, where they're just kind of like, what just happened here? We bought a horse that we thought would win a nice Maryland bred race, and all of a sudden we're in the Preakness for the 6-race winning streak and a legitimate chance. And so it's been really neat. Kelly Rubley could be the first female to train a Preakness winner, which would be very cool. And just a lot of interesting things with that horse. And I think he's legit. Now, having said that, his Tessio, he settled, but he didn't settle all that comfortably. I'm a little concerned what happens here if he gets out sprinted a little early, and whether he's going to be able to settle well enough to beat this kind of horse. I'm not 100% sure. I'd love to see it. Don't know if it's in the offing. I think I'd like to say I think War of Will takes a step forward here. I think he has excuses his last couple. I think he's sitting on a move forward. I like Owendale. I mean, I think that horse is coming in the right way. Brad Cox is very, very high on how well the horse is doing. He basically said, he breezed great. He's doing great. He's as good as he can be. Whether he's good enough to win the Preakness is the question with him. I'm not really. I mean, you got to respect the efforts, that's of course, but I'm not really all that enthralled with Improbable. It kind of feels to me like a horse who hasn't quite gone on as a 3-year-old. He's kind of the horse he was at 2, and I think he's going to need to be better than that today. So those are a couple thoughts. I mean, I think, and I may be an idiot. Well, I am an idiot in many ways, but I may be an idiot for this, but I think I'm going to have Bodie Express on my ticket.
Yeah, he took people kind of go back and look at that dirt. He took a lot of the worst of it in that scrum on the far turn at the Derby and was really kind of right in the thick of things. So I'm not totally against that idea either. I could make a case. I had the 4 that I talked about, but there are another 4 I could make an interesting case for as well. We're not winding up with the top 4 from the Derby, but I think we do have a really, really intriguing edition of the Preakness. And nobody can follow up on the Preakness better than racingbiz.com. So again, Frank, I'll tell people to swing by the website for all the coverage this weekend. And again, you have up until right up until post time of the 6th race if they want to jump in for the free handicapping contest.
Yeah, I think I think it's about 12:30. I think is when we close it.
Okay.
So you got plenty of time. Still plenty of time to get those picks in, and certainly love to have some new, as we say here at the Preakness, some new shooters in the handicapping contest.
Yeah, very good. Frank, as always, appreciate the visit. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks so much, Seth. You too. Good luck at the windows, and look forward to talking with you soon.
Live from Pimlico, Frank Vespe, the racingbiz.com. And why don't we jump right into our, if the guys in the control room have it queued up, our interview with Jeremy Plonk. We taped that yesterday. As I say, he had a great opinion in the Derby, and unfortunately it fell apart a little bit after they came under the wire in the way he liked, but then with the DQ. But I thought we'd catch up with him and get some opinions on the Preakness for this Saturday afternoon. Horseplayernow.com, Night School, much more. Up next Jeremy Plonk. Joined now by our friend Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com, night school, and much, much more. Jeremy, good morning.
Hey, happy Preakness Day, everybody.
Yeah, and as we're talking to you, we're actually recording on Friday. You're on the grounds, Black-Eyed Susan Day. Give us a little atmosphere and, more importantly, weather. What's that look like as we approach Preakness Day on Saturday?
Well, if you were here for the near tornado of American Pharoah last year or 4 years ago or last year's monsoon in the mud pit in the infield, you're going to like the weather at Pimlico this week. So it's going to be a good place to visit for a lot of racing fans that, look, we don't have the Kentucky Derby winner here, but what we're going to have is a great field in terms of depth and fantastic weather. Beautiful day here and expected to be a great weekend.
Yeah, and I'm curious what the crowd's going to be and television ratings and whatnot, because you don't have the top four from the Derby, so you don't have a shot at a Triple Crown. You don't have a shot at the horse putting the second leg together. But I think the buzz off the Derby DQ and all the news it's gotten, I have a feeling this is going to be a popular Preakness. It's certainly a good betting race, and even without that Derby buzz, as I say, I'll be really interested to see what we get television ratings and handle-wise.
Yeah, it's been since 1996 since we didn't have the Derby winner when Grindstone got injured. So we really don't have a lot of historical norms to kind of compare this to, The television ratings from 1996 really don't translate to today with so many more cable options and people cutting the cord and things like that. So, there's not going to be a real apples-to-apples comparison. I think handle will be the biggest determinant, and maybe the handle will be off a little bit from last year with the buzz of a Derby winner here. But if it is, I don't think it's going to be decidedly so. I think single digits if it's down at all. And I won't be surprised if good weather doesn't cancel out what we had last year, and also the field sizes don't cancel out what we had last year. Only 8 in the Preakness, 7 against Justify. Now we have 13 if the field stays all together as we expect it will. Those kind of factors can mitigate some of that interest.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more popular than people may be anticipating given the scenario, but we'll see. Just before we talk Preakness and maybe some of the undercard as well, I want to go back a couple of weeks and hopefully you're off suicide watch, because I heard you on Bick's radio show a few days after the Derby, and you were talking about that before the DQ being one of the biggest scores of your life. But I just wanted to take the opportunity because we had talked to you before the Derby, and I know you like Maximum Security, and you were putting the Florida Derby right up there as one of the major preps in your opinion. And so the call on Maximum Security and some of the other wagers you had, it was a great job of handicapping and betting, and just racing luck played against you a little bit. But I wanted to tip my cap to you on the Derby call.
Yeah, well, thanks. And, that's all we have at this point. So it's good friends and memories, It hasn't been an easy 2 weeks in terms of, trying to,
that big a score
everything.
You can't get all. It's tough to get.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been there with stuff that's probably not close to what you were going to cash, and they're tough.
Yeah, and, if you lose by a nose or your horse gets bumped and doesn't get there, that's a tough feeling, and there's a lot of coulda, shoulda, wouldas in racing, and as horse players, we live off of those. That's what makes you want to go back and try it again and to get it right. But to have it there for 22 minutes and then not have it, that was a weird and different feeling.
Yeah.
And look, we've got to march on if we're going to play this game, and we're going to come back swinging in the Preakness and see what we can do this week. I don't think we're going to pull those kind of numbers out of this race, but I got to tell you, it wasn't a large financial investment, to be in for a big score. Having the opinion on Country House and War of Wills, my 2 price horses underneath, obviously, worked underneath Maximum Security, and so the exactas were big, the trifectas were bigger, and there were a lot of them because, as you know, the way I play, I'm not a big, let's find 60 combinations and see if one of them works for 50 cents. I'm the kind of guy trying to find 6, 10, 12 combinations and play them multiple times so that when I'm right, I get paid. And that's the same way we're going to approach this Preakness Stakes. I think, it's a 13-horse field, but I think if you're using 10, 11, 12 of them in your exotic, I think you're going the wrong approach in this race. I'm sure we'll talk about how to bet it.
I will say I had a buck on the exacta before the DQ just because I was looking at the odds as the race was, 45 minutes away or so, and kind of thinking, man, there are some crazy prices here. So I just took a crazy 8-horse exacta box for a buck, and Maximum Security and Country House was in. because Country House, you looked up at the board, and 86-1 for a horse who in the previous race had finished third in the Arkansas Derby. To me, 86-1 is a $5,000 claimer on a Thursday who hasn't been closer than seventh in his last 5 starts. Not a Bill Mott horse coming out of a third-place finish in a nice graded stakes race.
Yeah, sometimes people get fascinated with speed figures, and he didn't get a fast figure in his maiden win, as flashy as it looked on the video, and so he never kind of got the respect of the figure and the speed folks throughout the course, and everybody just kind of thought he was a plotter, and he was actually much closer to the pace than anybody would have expected. 6/7 down the backstretch, I really thought with that wide draw that he would be last under the wire, if not the Japanese horse. I had him projected to be 19th or 20th under the wire the first time, and thought that his big shot was to be a plotter and to finish on the unders, second, third in the exotics. But the fact that he was able to stay much closer, he was fresh, he was sharp, and he ran a good race in the Kentucky Derby. Maximum Security ran an all-time race. I mean, the final quarter mile, what we saw in Louisville was fantastic, and he's going to be a historical footnote. But in terms of what we saw on the racetrack, it was a fantastic performance from Maximum Security.
Yeah, I agree. Looking forward to him coming back and the next time we get to see him. All right, let's jump in, get some thoughts on the Preakness. Before we do that, I'll alert people, the Countdown to the Crown package, the Preakness package is up. Jeremy has a horse-by-horse analysis, but also just update us on what the other Horse Player Now products are available, Black Eyed Susan and Preakness Day.
Yeah, we'll have the Horse Player Now Buzz Report, 9 handicappers from different regions of the country all coming together. We'll have horses to watch for Saturday's card around the country as well as here at Pimlico. I've got full card picks in there for the Pimlico card. We have our whole team handicapping the Preakness and all their different tracks around the country. Pick 4, pick 5 suggested wagers. So a good team effort. Kate and Bradar, Bob Newmeyer, myself, Brian Natto, a lot of folks that people are familiar with in the racing game putting out what we think is an honest product. And we're going to take a hard swing at it on Saturday and see how we do.
And again, the Countdown to the Crown package is up. We've been talking to you throughout the season. Pops up every Friday, looking at the prep races, looking ahead, looking back, and it's been a great way to follow that 3-year-old season as it is every year. And now the Preakness package, I pulled it up and went through it, so I know you and I are kind of on the same page. I like Always Mining. I put them on top. We're going to take a look at the stretch drive of the Tessio here back on April 20th. This was win number 6 of the 6-race win streak. And number 2, Always Mining, will run off by 11.5. But it was also interesting as I read Countdown to the Crown, you had a little chart next to Always Mining talking about the fastest final 3 furlongs in the Derby prep races. And behind Maximum Security, this performance in the Tessio for Always Mining stood up on that chart.
Yeah, he's come home fast twice now. If you got excited about Always Mining early in his win streak in these 6 in a row, that's good because, he was impressive going short and winning by dominant margins. But those were all one-turn races, and we don't know how these horses will handle 2 turns. In the private terms 2 races ago, he went 2 turns for the first time, and the fourth quarter of that race went sub-24, 23 and change, which is a phenomenal fourth quarter for a 3-year-old stretching out for the first time around 2 turns. That was the race where I said, boy, I can't wait to bet this horse. He came back in the Tessio. I was hoping they would go for the Wood Memorial because I think up in the Wood against Tacitus and those horses, he may have been 10-12 to 1 that day, and I would have bet him with both hands in the Wood. They took the easier path with Always Mining and went to the Tessio as the local prep at Laurel. It makes a lot of sense that they did that because it got him an expenses paid trip here to the Preakness, and, that's worth $30,000 at the entry and start box. So I think they did the right thing by the horse, but I do think he was good enough that he would have won the Wood Memorial had he run his race and gone up there. So I've been very high on him for his last 2 starts now. I like the fact that in the Tessio, they let him take back a little bit. Linda Rice had a really fast horse in there, and instead of going to the front like Always Mining has in pretty much all of his starts, they were able to sit off the pace a little bit, about 4 lengths back, took over on the turn, and then just threw off like a good thing through the stretch, like you should when you're 5 cents on the dollar, 1 to 20. But I think the first part of that race, sitting and relaxing, is the thing that's going to actually benefit him on Saturday because there's other speed in here. When you first looked at the Preakness with the original list of probables, say 7, 8, 10 days ago, he looked like lone speed. But almost every horse who's joined the fray in the last 7 days is another front-running type. So there will be company up front. He's going to have to sit a little bit, or maybe he's just better than the rest. But I've got some distance questions with Improbable. I've got some distance questions with War of Will. So if you think those horses coming through the lane may not fire their best late, why not take the horse who just came home in 37?
Yeah, I mean, he's just looked phenomenal so far, and so I'll jump on board him as a new shooter, so to speak. But you mentioned a couple coming out of the Derby, War of Will and Improbable. I put Improbable down in my mix just because it's Baffert, the beaten Derby favorite. Derby horses typically do well in the Preakness. We're missing the top 4 finishers, I think, for the first time since sometime in the 50s, but Improbable finished 5th and was the beaten favorite. So I put him in. I didn't use War of Will. I'm scared that may be a mistake, but I want an opinion on a horse that I put underneath, second behind Always Mining, and you have him down in the bottom of your mix as well. That's Owendale, and we'll take a look at the Lexington. Owendale's going to be the number 8 horse. Another Twist of Fate, the number 4, runs second. But I thought this was a pretty good performance after regrouping from the disappointment in the Risen Star. And we talked to Brad Cox on Friday, and they talked about regrouping and aiming for this Lexington, and it paid off. And buyer-wise, the number was very good. So Owendale, to me, is interesting coming into, and I will say, talk to Brad Cox. He's also got Warriors Charge. I got the distinct impression between the two, he was much higher on Owendale. He didn't come right out and say that, obviously, but that was my impression. I think Owendale is interesting on Saturday.
I think he's one of the keys to the race from a gambling standpoint because Always Mining, our top choice, is probably going to be a little bit underlaid in the win pool. People love win streaks, the local horse. I think there's going to be a fair backing for him that puts him a little bit lower than probably his fair chance of winning the race. But I think in exotics like Exactus Tries, I think he's going to be more representative of a horse who's 8 or 10 to 1, but I don't think he's going to be that on the win pool side of it. So if you're going to bet Always Mining, which I am going to, you need to group him with the right horses. I think Improbable's going to run his race and be part of it, but I think Owendale and Bourbon War are the 2 closers you really have to look at in this Preakness to get in and try to mix it up a little bit at, maybe a little bit of a price. But I think Bourbon War is going to get bet. Owendale's the right price horse in this race. We've seen last year Lone Sailor came up a little bit short in continuing the streak, but for several years in a row, a horse who's completely last early in the Preakness ended up in the top 3. And this race kind of falls apart some years where you got horses coming back on 2 weeks rest from the Derby who just kind of don't bring their race back the second time. It goes a little bit faster than the Derby sometimes. Maybe not on the clock because Pimlico is a much, much slower racetrack. But, a half at 47 at Pimlico could be like 45 and change at some racetracks. So don't let the time fool you. They'll be going quick on the front end. And so I think a horse like Owendale is what you need to get in the mix. And I think he'll be very much a key to your exotics. And for me, the closers in this race are the horses I've got to get in there. Bourbon War, Owendale, maybe win, but to a smaller degree. But I think Owendale is a real key to getting a price in this race.
I have win in my mix as well, but I'll toss out another one and a closer as opposed to one on the front end. But 2 horses that just an angle I've talked about the last week or so. Warriors Charge, I mentioned from Brad Cox. I took away from the interview, he's not totally convinced, but comes out of Oaklawn. And the other one that I was going to mention with a closing style that you talked about being potent potentially on Saturday, Laughing Fox coming out of that Oaklawn Invitational, the win and you're in on Derby Day down at Oaklawn. They both come in from Oaklawn, and Oaks Day and Derby Day at Churchill. There were 27 races. 10 of those races were won by horses who in their last race had raced at Oaklawn, including the eventual Derby winner. So I'm going to take an extra look at both Laughing Fox and Warriors Charge.
Yeah, and Steve Asmussen does so well on the undercards at these big days in the last several years, including here at Pimlico. He's unleashed some real corkers, Matoli, Switzerland, horses like that on these big Preakness Day undercards. So don't be surprised at all if he's got his horses all ready to go here on the 3rd Saturday in May. Laughing Fox of those 2 is the more likely to hit the board for me because of the running style. Warriors Charge and Brad Cox's horse, I think because he's a front runner, because he's won his races wire to wire, you've got to be convinced if he's going to win this race, that he's going to have to put away 3 or 4 other speed horses, take on the mid-packer Improbable, and hold off the late Chargers. That's a lot to ask, stylistically. Whereas I think Laughing Fox and a horse with that running style just needs horses to come back to him. And that's like an easier explanation than all the other things that have to go right for for a horse like Brad's horse in their, Warriors Charge. So of those two Oaklawn runners that you're talking about, I'm more apt to use Laughing Fox. But the other horse is more brilliant and faster and talented, But brilliant, fast, and talented horses don't always win horse races, That they look good on paper, but, Country House just won the Kentucky Derby, and everybody thought he was a plotter. So, the races are not run on the straight. They're not run without traffic. They're not run on even paces, So if this race goes fast early, which it very well may, then you want some of those closers in the mix, and Laughing Fox would fit in that. I think there are better closers than Laughing Fox, but I think of the closers that I've mentioned anyway, Laughing Fox is probably going to be twice the price of some of those other horses, Definitely more than Bourbon War. Bourbon War is going to get bet, I'm afraid. He's going to be a horse who ends up 6 or 8 to 1. That's why I think Owendale is the key to getting a price from the come-from-behinders. But Laughing Fox will probably be twice the price of Owendale even. So I've had no argument if somebody wants to take a big price closer. I'm a guy who advocated Cherry Wine, senior investment in this Preakness history in recent years that were, 30 to 1 type horses who got on the ticket with those kind of running styles. So we've seen it before, and Laughing Fox would certainly fall into that historical pattern.
Yeah, as I say, I don't have him in my mix, but I'll play around with him a little bit just on the Corky Oaklawn angle. And as you say, I think there'll be some very good value. All right, let's go a little bit earlier on the card. Some more 3-year-olds, this time sprinting the Chick Lang. And before we went on the air, you said you had maybe an opinion in here. I thought Pyron was going to be interesting from the aforementioned Steve Asmussen, coming from Oaklawn, off a couple of wins and 2 career starts, obviously gets tested here. I went in that direction. What were your thoughts on the Chick Lang?
I think Pyron's got a very big chance in there. There's a lot of speed in the race. The reason I'm really interested in it is when I'm against the favorites, those are the races I really want to jump into. I follow Keeneland very closely. I was giddy to see Preamble back in the entries when he returned at Keeneland opening weekend, and he won that day, and it looks good in the racing form and the program lines, winning by 2 3/4. But he didn't run well. There was absolutely nothing in that race at 3 to 5, and there were several races on the card at that distance, and he ran slower than the other races. I mean, that was the slowest 7-furlong race on the card that day amongst the horses of any kind of quality. Maidens ran faster that day. I think Preamble's a horse who is going to get overbet because he's 3 for 3 lifetime. There's a lot of speed in the Chick Lang. So I of the front running horses, Pyron is absolutely the one I like. But the horse I'm picking to pull the upset is Still Dreaming. I think this is a race that's going to set up off the pace, and I think Still Dreaming can make a rally. A horse who's had some, shots in Maryland. They took some shots other places. But this is the one that's a half-brother to Nyquist. He was meant to be good. And that he's getting a shot for Graham and the West Point guys on the undercard. I like Still Dreaming and at a price with Pyron. I'm going to play those 2 horses heavily, one early and one late. Pyron the speed, Still Dreaming from off the pace. And I'm going to try to get through that race in the multi-race wagers 2 deep. And I'm hoping that we can get a double-digit price, 10 to 1 or more, on Still Dreaming. So I think this is a great betting race because Preamble may go off 2 to 1, 9 to 5, something like that, off the flashy resume. But I don't think he's fast enough the way he's run that last race to beat these kind of sprinters going 6 furlongs.
And, from our friends at West Point, got off the career to a nice start. Then they tried a couple of stakes races. And last time, I like getting back and getting a nice little confidence builder. I think that has the potential to move them forward. Jeremy, just before we let you go, we talked a little bit about this Derby day. And I know triples are your thing, but talk a little bit about just maybe betting strategy on Preakness Day.
Yeah, well, it's very cut and dry for me in the Preakness. I'm taking Always Mining on top. I am assuming that Improbable lights the board. The favorites are very strong at Pimlico in the Preakness historically, and he was the best horse left out of the Arkansas Derby, best horse left out of the Kentucky Derby, and those are 2 of the highest-rated races that we have to judge this year. So I think Improbable runs 2nd or 3rd. So if I have a top horse, so I can play Always Mining over Improbable, and I'm going to take 3 closers in 3rd. I'm going to take Always Mining on top, 3 closers in 2nd, and Improbable in the show spot. So you're already looking at 6 combinations that way, 1 by 3 by 1. And so it's a $3 ticket for 50 cents, a $6 ticket for $1. And I'm going to play it 7 ways Sunday. And if we hit the trifecta 30, 40, 50 times, we're going to be happy. And that's the way we're going to attack the Preakness. And so for the closers, we talked about, I definitely want Owendale in there. I definitely want Bourbon War in there. The third one, I would say win would probably be the 3rd closer I would use. but Laughing Fox is kind of right in that mix with me. And maybe after seeing how the undercard and the day produces for Asmussen, if his horses are on fire early in the day and they're all running well, that might make me put Laughing Fox in there. But the third horse for that three-way, and again, if you want to take four, we're not talking about increasing the price of the ticket very much. Throw Laughing Fox in there if Asmussen's having a big day to go along with also using win-win-win. But that's the way I'm approaching the race, and it's very similar to the way I bet the Kentucky Derby. There was, it was a very focused ticket, and I assumed Baffert would be in the top three in there somewhere. And we had one shot with an all ball at the bottom of a trifecta, but I don't think you need the all in here. I think if you're using more than 6 horses in your trifecta, you're probably going too deep in this Preakness.
I like it, and we appreciate the conversation, Jeremy. As always, we'll check in again probably before the Belmont Stakes, but have a great weekend down at Pimlico.
All right, always great to join you, and good luck to all the players out there.
Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com. And thanks to Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com, for joining us. Frank Vespe, we had live from Pimlico on this Saturday Preakness morning, and we kicked the show off with Blaine Wright, another twist of fate. Wish him a lot of good luck this afternoon in the Preakness. Once again, promos, Bet 100, Get 100, continuing through the month of May. Sign up for a brand new Capital OTB bet account, and you're eligible for the Bet 100, Get 100. That means as soon as you bet $100 into your brand new account, Capital OTB puts $100 into your account. Check out the website for info and to sign up, capitalotb.com. We're underway here at the Racebook. The doors opened at 9:30. I don't know how many people are out there, but I would assume you probably have a shot at that Preakness commemorative glass. First 300 through the door today get that, a Preakness glass. So swing on by, regardless if you can get that or not. We'd love to see you here this afternoon at the Clubhouse Racebook. I will have the $1,000 bankroll to play all afternoon long. I'm going to head out to the front side in just a few minutes because first post, 23 minutes away down at Pimlico. So we'll be out on the front side here at the Racebook talking Preakness Day wagers throughout the afternoon. Hopefully we can juice that bankroll up significantly as the day goes along. So come on in, root for the bankroll team. Or as I said earlier, maybe if I just toss out some ideas that you can put in your mix, we will all cash some tickets. Today and tomorrow, 3% bonus on your Churchill wagers. That's via your Capital OTB bet account player bonus. Today and tomorrow, check out for restrictions on the website, capitalotb.com. Love to see you here at the Racebook, but whether you're here or at your local parlor or branch or playing at home on the computer or the mobile device, there are also a couple other options to keep in mind for today. The Bet Bus is a Betmobile, actually, is at the City Line Bar and Grill, 1200 Western Avenue. That's today here in Albany. The Betmobile at the City Line Bar and Grill. Enjoy all their amenities and Preakness wagering as well this afternoon. And the Bet Bus is at the 72 Tavern and Grill out in Utica. So there are some other options for your Preakness Day wagering fun. And it will be a fun day because it's a really, really nice card at Pimlico today. We will be looking at it, as I say, all day long right out here in the Racebook. And I reiterate again, we would love to see you down here. All right, I'm going to wrap things up for this edition of Racing Across America. Wish all of you a fun and lucrative day. Want to thank our friends at Woodbine for their sponsorship. Woodbine, pick, bet, and cheer on great racing north of the border. Again, appreciate their sponsorship. All right, Pimlico underway shortly, and then all the other tracks will come in a couple more hours as well. It looks like it's going to be a fun day of racing. As I say, wish you all a fun, lucrative afternoon of wagering. We'll recap all of it tomorrow here on Racing Across America at the regular time of 10 a.m. We'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.